Welcome to One on One with Mitch, Lafon, and joining me on this episode, it is a bassist singer from King's X, Dug Pinnick. He is also in KXM with Ray Luzier of Korn and George Lynch, formerly of Dokken and of course of Lynch Mob. Their new album is Scatterbrain. We talk about that and a whole lot of other stuff. Before checking out the interview, please check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON. Like it if you already haven't. And there you go. And with that, here is the one, the only, the exceptionally humble Dug Pinnick. We are speaking with KXM's Dug Pinnick. The new album is Scatterbrain, coming out March 17th. Doug, a pleasure to speak with you. The last time I saw you probably was like 10 or 15 years ago at the House of Blues for a King's X show. House of Blues in L.A. for a King's... So it's been a while.
That was a good show, too.
That was a great show, and in fact, what impressed me more, being a boy from Montreal, is as I walked out, Slash was milling about from Guns N' Roses, and I went, man, L.A. is not like Montreal.
That's cool.
Yeah, so let's talk the new album. Tell me a little bit about sort of the process going into it. Having spoken to Ray before, he sort of said, you guys didn't really have pre-production or rehearsals or big writing sessions. You sort of showed up at the studio and hit record. Is that sort of how you would describe the process as well?
There is no other way I can describe it.
So talk to me.
Seriously, we went into the studio and we sat down and said, okay. And we just 1, 2, 3, 4 and start playing something, and we just play until we found something that worked, and then we recorded it. It didn't take us long. I mean, it was like the riff or the part would come up within 2 or 3 minutes or less, and then we would record it and continue to make parts up until we thought we had a song, and then we would piece it together, and that's what you got. It wasn't long. It took us maybe half hour each song, I would say, maybe less or more.
Now, after you come down with sort of the framework for the song, do you go back and re-record it, like officially, like you've sussed this stuff out and you've got, whatever the song?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Ray's the first guy. After we know exactly what we want, then we'll cut and paste the whole song together on Pro Tools, and then Ray will go back in and sit down and play the whole song straight through. And then George and I will both come back and do all of our parts straight through again. And then I'll do the vocals after everything's done.
Have we lost sort of some of the soul of music by having Pro Tools and by having auto-tune and all that technology?
Yeah. Yes, we have, but we've gained and lost. We've gained because it's easier now. You make up a riff and post it, and make up another riff and post it on your Pro Tools, and another one, and then cut and paste it until it makes sense, which makes it easier. You don't have to do it live, but both ways work as long as the end result is a whole piece. So we're piecing everything together with Pro Tools, but then after we figure out what we're doing, we go and do the whole song like it's supposed to be done, So as far as I'm concerned, it's the same process at the end. The end result is the same process. That's what I'm saying. But on the other hand, too, it's I go in the studio and some kid comes in and he's got to do his guitar part, and he'll do one verse and say, okay, fly it, and walk out the door. Well, practice does make perfect. I've always said the more you do the same riff, 20 years from now, that same riff will just be magical. Look at AC/DC or, bands that have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. They might sound the same, but there is a magic that's happened because they practice. They've played that riff so many times that it becomes tangible instead of just audio, and that's what people forget. And that's what Pro Tools has done. It's kind of backed people off from really honing in on the stamina of playing. You can sit down and learn a lick by watching YouTube, but what happened to the days where we had a record and we had to stop the record and back it up and slow it down and work at it until we figured out what was going on. Then we carefully learned it on our guitar, and that's what made people in the older days, it seemed, we played with more emotion. Nowadays nobody has time to put their heart into it. They're too busy learning the licks from YouTube.
Which I guess is good in one sense, but also sort of a pity. I think which is why some of that 60s and 70s music holds up, and some of the later stuff, you know. When KMX...
Well, true. I could never go back to analog. So, you know, it's just so a lot of work.
Yeah, especially getting out the razor blade and cutting tape. KMX.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the good old days, right? When the band first came out and the first album came out, you know, I had gotten the impression, obviously wrongly, that the band was sort of a one-off and it was just going to be this one. But it's not. Why was it important for you to come back to the band and do a second record? What is it about Ray and George that's exciting to work with?
Well, the honest truth is I love playing with Ray and I love playing with George. But we put the record out, it sold well, people really liked it, so we said, well, why don't we keep doing this? You know, why should we stop? It didn't make any sense. And it's another paycheck for me also. You know, it's like, you know, I'm a starving musician like anybody else, so these side projects help me pay my bills. So it's an economical thing also, but we're friends and we have a respect for each other. And I think that for me personally, I didn't think a whole lot about it when we decided to do this. I just said, I'll get together and make a record with these guys. And when we started to make the record, I started to fall in love with this band, the guys who play and what they play and how they are and who they are and their comedy, their personalities, everything. And I really feel in this situation that we're actually a real band. And I think we'll always be that, no matter what our other projects are.
So do you see that moving forward, whereas it is a band now and not just this sort of project that you get to once in a while? Do you see yourself touring? Do you see yourself making a third and a fourth album and a live? I mean, do you see sort of the band thing? Okay.
We see it all. The only problem is it's sort of like having a mistress. We have our wives we have to attend to, which is KXM Korn and Lynch Mob and, you know, all the other projects that George does. So the problem with KXM is as much as we love it and we enjoy it, it's on the back burner when it comes to our other projects. So until the biggest problem is Ray with Korn because they tour so much, and then when he does have a second off, he's got to spend with his family and stuff like that. So our biggest problem right now is just getting Ray to be free enough to go out and do some shows. And that's what we want. Because for me, I have days off, many days off, months off sometimes with KXM because we don't tour as much as most bands do.
What we need to do is convince Ray to have Korn have KMX be the opening band on every tour. That would be the way to do it.
That discussion has come up. I won't talk any more about it because I don't want to start the rumors. But you know, if that would work out, that would be awesome. There may be a possibility. We know.
Well, and it would absolutely make sense. Musically, it's a fit. It's not like one is doing opera and the other one's doing country. And, you know, fan-wise, I think it makes sense. You mentioned before... Yeah, it does. You mentioned before that, you know, you do a lot of these projects because it's a paycheck and, you know, you're a starving musician like others. Let's look at KXM for a second. The band's been around since the mid-'80s. Numerous albums out. You know, great cult following, a lot of respect among fellow musicians. Why did you not get to that next level? Why was there not a KXM arena tour? Why were you not playing Madison Square Garden? You know,
I'll give you an analogy. If Tide puts out a product and it's new and improved, you know, or whatever, it's a product and they put it out and they spend a whole bunch of money, put it out, they push it like crazy, and nobody buys it but a handful of people. What are they going to do? They're gonna take it off the shelf and put it in a mom and pop store for that handful of people that love it. That's what KXM is. We have a core of people who love us, mainly musicians, and they'll follow us to the end. Very, very loyal fans. It isn't 1 million. It isn't 100,000. You know, it's just not enough. But if we go out and tour and you know, budget right and work work the numbers right, we can actually make a paycheck and come home and pay some bills. But that's about how it worked with us. Basically, people didn't buy it.
Right.
Everybody, people want to blame record companies, they want to blame media, they want to blame all kinds of stuff. But when King's X came out, we were all over the place like everybody else. We were level with all the other bands, but nobody bought our music. That's the bottom line. And when they don't buy your music, you can't work. And I don't know why. It's like, sometimes I think about it. I listen to all these bands, and especially because in the 90s, I know all those guys. And I knew them all when their first records came out, and I watched them sell zillions of records. And in the beginning, they looked at us as big brothers, and they said, "We can only be like King's X." Well, they took off and surpassed us. And they're all my friends, and I see them sitting in their mansions and their big paychecks, and I struggle to pay my bills. But that's life. You put a business together. Some people have a product that everybody wants. Some people have a product that a few people want, and that's what we settled into. There's nothing else we can do but continue to do what we do. Try to make the best music we can for the people that want to hear it. And, people always say, "Your due is coming. You're gonna make it." Well, we already did. I said we were on the mountaintop. I've seen it. I've lived through it. We were sat in the Rolls Royce for a while. I call it the rock and roll Rolls Royce with AC/DC and Scorpions, and we did some major tours with Pearl Jam and things like that. So we got to live the dream. At the end of the day, people know who I am, and so what more can you ask for?
Was it ever for you, though, a source of frustration or depression where you just sort of went, why the hell am I doing this? Why don't I just go get an accounting job? Did it ever get to that point?
Oh, I've gotten that point so many times.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. But at the end of the day, this is what I've always done, and this is what I always will do. And I don't see any other thing to do other than this. And if I sing on somebody's album and they give me $500 to sing on it, well, that'll pay a bill. That's why I live now. And the good thing is somebody wants me to sing for them. People want me to be a part of their projects and do things. And so, I get to pick and choose even, some things I can turn down, some things I can go for, because, I have value in the marketplace. It's not a whole lot, but at least I can still work. And so I'm at 66 years old, I have come to the conclusion I'm not going to cry about the past. I'm going to move forward and try to make music and continue to, try to make the best music I can. And that's why I love KXM, is because it's almost like it's not over. We put this record out and people aren't saying, "Oh, but three old guys who are just doing some tired music trying to rehash the past." This is actually some fresh stuff, and people are responding to it. So that in itself makes me happy and takes me out of that depression of, "Oh, I didn't make it and woe is me" bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I certainly wasn't trying to.
I can say one thing too is my story. Our lack of success, or whatever you want to call it. You can go down the list. There's thousands of bands out there that have the same story. With managers that screwed them over, record companies that didn't quite do the right thing or whatever. You got all kinds of stories. So I never want people to go, "Oh, woe is Doug," or "Oh, poor Doug." I'm happy. I got to live my dream better than most.
Yeah, and I certainly wasn't suggesting, "Oh, poor Doug." What I was actually going to get to, though, is
no.
Right.
I wouldn't say that, but people have said that.
Right. Yeah.
I would complain about, "I gotta go to Europe. I don't want to fly 10 hours." I go, "Oh, poor Doug. He gets to go to Europe and play for thousands of people while we go to work." That's what my friends were telling me. So they shut me down real quick.
Yeah, reality check. No, but as you were going through the 90s and, there was a modicum of success and failures and this and what I've always respected about King's X is that you sort of stuck to your guns. You made this song. My perception, I guess, is you always made the songs that were right for your voice, your band, you guys. Was there ever the temptation to say, okay, we need to make a more Soundgarden album. We need to make a more Nirvana-ish album. We need to make a more, pop rock. I mean, did that ever come into play?
Well, yeah, all the time. Every song I write, I thought about that, and I tried. But what happens is when you get done with the end result, it's not Nirvana, it's not Soundgarden, no matter how I try. And the thing about those bands also, just a lot of bands of the 90s that were doing it, a lot of them sounded, they had an element of King's X in them. So it was sort of like, okay, Soundgarden's going to imitate King's X, imitating Soundgarden, imitating King's X. You know what I'm saying? It was like, remember when Spoon Man came out? Sounded like a song off the Dogman record. And I remember Outshine sounded like a song off of the Out of Silent Planet album. And it's not that we were copying each other. I think we were all forging. Are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening attentively.
Okay, so I thought my phone vibrated, but I think we all discovered the drop D tuning, and we were moving forward. I mean, us and Soundgarden were the first two bands really that were really going down in Alice in Chains, and then everybody started going drop D, and this whole thing started happening. But back in the day, yeah, we all were just like running down the road together with all this new sound that we had all discovered,
Yeah, and it sounded good. The side projects, we touched on that too. You've had all kinds, Grinder Blues, Pinnick Gale's Pigeon, KXM. There's been Platypus for Ty. There's been Jelly Jam for Ty. So is there a point where maybe you've just sort of spread yourself so thin and stopped minding the store? And maybe if there had been a focus on the brand King's X, it might have moved forward? Or is that?
I think that a lot of people, especially our fans, think that.
Okay.
But I think it has a lot to do with just emotionally and the way we feel about things. I mean, when you keep putting records out and nobody buys them and nobody cares, your incentive kind of goes down. You still have the creativity, and you still have the drive. But it's almost like, okay, let's have a party, but nobody's going to come to it. Why do you want to have a party? Well, we got to have a party. They're fun. Well, you want to have it next week or next year? Well, let's do it next year. Next year comes around. Well, let's do it next year. It's like you just got to, I don't know, it just gets to the point where you just feel like it's more of a struggle than a joy. And when I remember the Doobie Brothers put a record out. It was called What Once Was a Vice Is Now a Habit. It's what I do now is a habit. So I have to look at it differently. If we had the encouragement of zillions of people coming to see us, it might make me write differently. Might not let me write from my heart. Sometimes when you get into a band that gets so big that they're a corporation, that you're at that point dictated as to what to say, what to sing about, and how to look, because you've got lots of people on a payroll check, you've got accountants, you've got everybody that's controlling you, so everybody can make their money. So there's so many different aspects to the what a band does from their success to lack of success. But bottom line, it's all a daily struggle just to keep up, and just live your life and deal with everything that comes your way, just like anybody else. I might be babbling. I'm sorry, I got stoned.
Yeah. No, you're not babbling. In fact, I find it quite interesting. And I'll finish here with King's X, and then we'll get back to Scatterbrain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But 2012, you put out Burning Down Boston, and that was meant to raise money for drummer Jerry Gaskill, who had a heart attack and had medical bills and so on and so forth. Now, as a Canadian, I just don't understand this whole medical bill thing. I've had 2 heart surgery myself, and I've paid a grand total of $0. I'm baffled by your American system, but we're not here to talk politics. But first of all,
it's all about corporations. It's all about corporations, money, and greed. America's lobbyists can go in and twist the law enough for everybody to lose and companies to win. It's set up that way. There's nothing we can do anymore. U.S. is over as far as I'm concerned. But the corporations control us in every way. In media, I mean, even what we see on the media, we don't even know if it's true anymore. We are completely controlled and manipulated. Big Brother has already taken control of us, and it's already here. Everybody's talking about it. No, it's already here. They've got us. We're not getting away now.
Yeah, that's what I find interesting about you. And this has nothing to do with music, but in Canada we get Canadian media, and we have some European channels. We have the Russian channel, and so I watch news from all these different things, and I see an event, and I get 5 different perspectives, and I go, well, which one is true? I mean, CNN said this, and CBC said that, and RT News said and I'm like, how can you have 5 different truths for the same? But it's baffling. But let me get back to this burning down Boston. It was done for Jerry. When that happened and Jerry had the heart attack, how did that affect you? You wake up and your bandmate has this. How was that for you? And of course, sort of describe the importance and the urgency to get that album out there and get the donations coming in, and what it meant to sort of support your bandmate.
For me, I didn't think of any of that because I was just concerned about Jerry. I get a call or a text message from his wife in the morning. It says, Jerry had a heart attack, 50-50 chance. That was it. And I got out of the bed and I walked around in circles and went, oh no. It was like the reality of he might not live, and the band is over. Everything, my whole life is going to change, and especially one of my best friends in the whole world, so I didn't know what to do. And that's all I could think about. When the people started, somebody put I forgot what they call it, the thing to ask for money, but somebody put that up, but I didn't even think about that. I was too busy just worried about Jerry. So I wrote a couple songs, actually, is what got me through it. Sitting waiting to find out, I wrote We're So Glad You Made It when I found out he was okay. And there's a couple other songs on my Naked record that I wrote while I was waiting to find out if he was going to make it. It was a real crazy time for us. And all the other stuff, the outpouring of money for Jerry and for me for my hernia operation, it just humbled me and really surprised me that people would send their $20 to help me take care of my medical bills. And it was $25,000, and I spent it all on the medical bills. It was crazy, man. But this in America, it's terrible. The healthcare is just awful, and people are just dying, and people are using half the medication instead of the whole medication because they can't afford it. You get a bottle of pills and it's $50, and it's a month later you got to go buy it again. People can't afford that at all.
No, and
they don't do it.
And I've got to tell you,
and they think.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
I just got to tell you again, from my Canadian perspective, I'm just baffled. I've had 2 hernia operations, a kidney removed, and 2 heart surgeries, and I've paid a grand total of $0. I'm baffled by. But that said, you've done all this music, and your music has meant something to the fans. The fans that listen to it have either gotten through a tough time, a breakup, or this or that, and music has that empowering kind of thing. But obviously, when it comes back at you, like it did with the fans in your surgery, does that sort of change the way you see things? Does that sort of say, hey, man, wow? How is it for you to get that love back?
It really showed me the love that people had for us. I play music, but, you forget people actually love you, and they want you to be healthy because they received something from you that they value, and so they want to support, they wanted to support me. It was, it brought me to tears because I'd never felt that kind of an overwhelming wave of appreciation, Yeah,
no,
it was awesome.
Music really is an empowering force. And we'll just finish off with Scatterbrain. Where do we see ourselves going from here? I asked you before about touring and stuff, but have you already started thinking about a third album, or have you already started thinking about the next thing for the band?
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. The record's not even out yet. So
Right, got a month.
For me personally, oh yeah, less than a month. But at that point, it's, we see what it does. We've got 3 videos. We just released the second video today. It's up on YouTube. And at that point, we're just going to, continue on with our other careers and see what happens with KXM. And hopefully when Ray gets some time off, we can do some shows and continue to just try to be visible,
Yeah, and
yeah, I know there's going to be another KXM record. There's no doubt about that. But there's nothing to think about because we'll probably end up doing it the same way we did it this time. Just get together and
jam out. Will there be another King's X record, by the way?
Yes, we're talking to a couple producers right now and a couple record companies about the whole deal. So, and literally we're in the middle of a negotiation. So there will be a new King's X record. I'm very excited.
And I'll finish.
It's been over 10 years. It's been 10 years, I think. It's been about 10 years.
Well, if you look at the Boston one, it was 2012, and let me just see here. Well, yeah. It's been Tales from the Empire with 2009, XV or 15 with 2008. So yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the last proper album was 14 or 15. That's what I consider.
Yeah. So 9 years ago.
I don't consider the live stuff legitimate.
True. No, I know what you mean. But yeah, it's been 50. And then we'll finish with this quickly. George Lynch. I grew up with George as the guy in Dokken, and of course, as hair metal or melodic rock, let's call it that, became less favorable. People, Dokken, well. But in terms of being a player, he is just phenomenal. But you as a musician, how do you see him in terms of his playing and his abilities?
He's a genius. What I love about George is when you back him in a corner, he comes up with amazing stuff, and that's kind of how we did it with KXM. Sometimes I'm mean to him. I won't listen to anything that he wants me to do. He'll say, "Hey, play this riff," and I'll go, "No, George, I'm going to play anything that's the opposite from you." My whole thing in this band was everybody be who they are completely and not be concerned about the other person and what he's doing, because we have to trust each other. That's the most important thing about a band. And for me, it was sort of kind of an experiment. And as a result of it, I think that all 3 of us came up with things that we probably wouldn't have come up with if we were in another band or situation, because of being restrained or the pressure of having to create. And with KXM, we just push the button and it just flows. And I look around and go, when did you come up with that riff? And now how can I make something that's going to complement, not follow you? And same thing with Ray is his playing. Ray played what he wanted, exactly what he wanted. Ray said he's never really been in his own band before. He's been in, other bands. He's been hired guns for a lot of people. But this is his band, so he can rule on the drums, do whatever he wants to. And that's what I love about this band is there's a freedom that we're not constrained by our proper jobs.
Well, you're not restrained by your brands. King's X has a sound. Korn has a sound, and Ray, as you said, is just a hired gun, so he has even less of a say in it. And Lynch Mob and Dokken, well, you can't be doing KXM songs on a Dokken record. It just wouldn't sound right. So yeah,
right.
It's got to be very liberating for all of you. There you go. I see our time is up. We got to half an hour. Doug, it was a great pleasure, and that show that I saw at the House of Blues years and years ago was absolutely phenomenal, and pleasure to finally interview you after all these years.
Well, you're welcome, man. Good to meet you.
Absolutely, and hopefully we'll see you in Montreal and in Canada soon. That'd be either with King's X or with KXM, either one. Just make it up here.
Okay.
Thank you now.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. And there you have it, folks. My interview with Dug Pinnick of KXM. The new album is called Scatterbrain. It also has friend Ray Luzier on drums and George Lynch Mob, Dokken fame on guitar. It is a masterpiece waiting to be discovered. And while you're discovering stuff, head over to Twitter and discover me there at Mitch Lafon, Mitchlafon. And with that, I bid you a fond, fond farewell. Arrivederci, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, or as I like to say, bye for now. Cheers.